Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
The chairman of the Committee on Standards in Public Life has said he'll look again at whether rules on MPs having second jobs need to be changed in light of Mr Osborne's new role at the London Evening Standard. So what are the rules? Well, MPs are allowed to have second jobs, but the Commons Code of Conduct states that they must not act as a paid advocate. They do have to declare any payment for employment outside Parliament in the Register of Members' Financial Interests. The rules also state that Cabinet members must wait 3 months before they can accept any kind of paid employment, and they should not lobby existing ministers on behalf of any organisation that has employed them for 2 years after leaving office. The Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards, currently Catherine Hudson, is tasked with looking into complaints against MPs. The Commissioner then reports any breaches of the Code of Conduct to the Committee on Standards, currently chaired by Labour's Kevin Barron, which then decides on a course of action to take against an MP, including recommending suspension from the Commons if this is necessary. But it is up to the Committee on Standards in Public Life to advise the Prime Minister on ethical standards. And the chair of that committee, Lord Bew, told a Sunday paper this weekend that they would have to look again at our rules in light of George Osborne's appointment as editor of the Evening Standard. Eric Pickles, Mr Osborne now has 6 jobs, not just 2, but 6 jobs. Can he really effectively represent his constituents?
I think that's a matter for him, and it's a matter for his employers, and it's a matter for his electorate.
What do you think?
My view is that, I was as open-mouthed and gobsmacked as the rest of the country with the announcement. But if anybody can make it work, I suspect George can do so. He's a relatively young guy. I don't think he wants to go. I don't think he wants to.
They started hitting each other on
it. None of this fisticuff, if you mind.
You could keep a straight face,
Rob's
Eric.
a young guy. I mean, I can't see any reason why he shouldn't do it.
However young, whatever his age, 6 jobs. Can I just read you? Hang on, Eric Pickles. Look, we know he is. He's accepted this job as a as the editor of the Evening Standard. He has accepted a post as an advisor to the US asset management fund BlackRock for £650,000 a year. He also has fees for speeches and conferences that he does, and he's also a fellow at the Washington-based McCain Institute think tank, as well as being an MP. However young and however energetic, is it possible to do all of those effectively and represent constituents? Both
Politics and running a newspaper are pretty cutthroat. If he can't, it'll pretty soon be apparent. I'm interested that that there's going to be an inquiry because, of course, there are hundreds of MPs lining up to become editors of newspapers. I think this actually is pretty an exceptional thing, and I suspect that the committee's had this on the stocks for a long time and have looked for an excuse, and this is the perfect excuse to do it.
Has he broken any rules?
I don't know if he's broken any rules, but I think he's not working in the spirit of the rules, most certainly. I mean, it's a bit like, when we discuss tax, whether people are working in the spirit of that and they sometimes get away with it. I don't think he can do the job. I'll be, straightforward on this. No, I don't think he can do the job.
Which job will suffer?
I think being an MP will suffer. I mean, I've, come down this morning on the train from Doncaster. I was in the office for 10 this morning. The idea that, you're only working when Parliament's sitting and you turn up for a debate or something is not the case. I think he's done a huge disservice, actually, by his actions. And, it's not like he actually needs the money. He's loaded anyway, as we all know. But, I mean, it's like, I think he's done a huge disservice.
Because you think it'll affect... Do you think it'll affect other MPs who do have second jobs?
I think it does a huge disservice to the perception of MPs and what we do with our time to support
I think he's back in
electorate.
British politics.
So,
he's been an important voice inside the Conservative Party for 15 years,
so
a dominant voice.
Right,
and now
but that's
he's
a different thing. If this is all about him and positioning himself in politics in the future, whatever that may be, future candidate for Mayor of London, future leader of the Conservative Party, I'm not really interested in that, Eric.
Well, and also,
I'm concerned by how he's presenting
Is
politics
it a conflict
in
of
this country.
interest in that sense, then? I mean, how can you edit a newspaper like the London Evening Standard and be a politician at the same time?
I bet Sarah Sands didn't see it as a part-time job, Jo, when she was the
No,
editor.
she's been quoted as saying she worked about 11, 12 hours a day.
Well, let's hope he's going to give the same amount. But
on the issue of conflict of interest,
but there is
though.
a world of difference between, say, editing this programme and editing a newspaper. Public broadcasters have to remain impartial. One thing about the British press is it's a very partial organisation. It has views. It has.
So it doesn't matter that he's not independent, because of course he'll be lobbying on behalf of the Tory party, won't he, through the newspaper?
Or himself.
Well, no, don't get bitter about it.
Oh,
still hope
no,
this-
no,
I still have
is it
hope for
true?
you. I still have hope for you. I suspect he'll run a very successful paper, and I think there is a tradition of journalists becoming politicians and politicians becoming journalists. I'm not advocating. I'm not here to say this is a wonderful thing that happened. I'm really saying I don't think it is as important. I don't think it is as significant as perhaps you're making out.
Well, Eric Pickles talks about bitterness, but is that your issue, Caroline Flint, that actually if he was going to be editing a paper that might be a little bit more favourable to the Labour Party, you wouldn't have as big a problem with it?
No, that hasn't. To be honest, that has not crossed my mind at all. I think actually the Evening Standard, you know, I read it when I'm down in London. I think it's pretty fair actually in terms of where it dishes out the plaudits and the brickbats. What I think is terrible about this is it's almost like, you know, being an MP is not the most important job in George Osborne's life, and that is, I think, a disservice to other MPs, but also I think it's just not right that he should operate in this way. And I think he should stand down like Blair, like Cameron did when, you know, they decided to step away from their jobs. They left Parliament.
Right. You think he should leave Parliament. Do you think he will, in the end, leave Parliament? Because there's going to be so much furore around this. I mean, do you accept it will undermine public trust in MPs? There are plenty of Conservative MPs who feel that.
I think that ultimately we're going to have to see whether he can do these two very exacting jobs. But that's up to his electorate. What his electorate have will have a very powerful person as a very powerful person as a member of Parliament. I'm not advocating him remaining in Parliament. I'm not advocating him going. I'm just saying I think circumstances will determine this ultimately.
Right, but in terms of the conflict of interest, I mean, he's also running a paper that has business pages that will be dealing with companies. He will still be an advisor to this asset management firm BlackRock. That is going to lead to serious questions of whether he can really do that and be an MP.
I think that's the more important of the two questions, if you forgive me for saying so. But of course that could be easily dealt with if he laid down proper what's called Chinese walls, so that the business editor had complete autonomy over matters relating.
And would you trust that? Would you trust that enough to inoculate and protect?
The consequence of breaching that will be beyond imaginable.
Right.
There's no transparency about anything. There's no accountability about anything. We won't. Who is going to decide about whether he's doing his job as an MP more than he's doing the job as the editor? And the truth is, his constituents do not have any say, as far as I know, in terms of recalling and having another election.
He was Chancellor Exchequer. I mean, I suspect that being Chancellor Exchequer is slightly more daunting than being editor even of the Evening Standards. You were a minister. I was a minister. That's pretty much a full-time job, and I don't believe our constituents suffered as a result.
The former Chancellor George Osborne, he of 6 jobs, has told the Commons that Parliament is enhanced by having MPs with different experiences. He was responding to a Labour question on his new job as editor of the London newspaper The Evening Standard. Farrah O'Brien has this report.
Final! Free Standard!
They were giving away energy drinks with the Evening Standard today. For busy Londoners, for the city's multitaskers, always on the go.
Please, don't make me do a quick on this.
No.
I can't walk that fast. Just very quickly, 2 minutes, Channel 4 News.
in the House of Commons.
2 minutes. Just tell me quickly, what will motivate you to get up at 4 o'clock every morning to put out a newspaper like The Standard?
Well, it's a great honour to edit the Evening Standard. Of course, it's wonderful being the Member of Parliament for Tatton. We've just had a discussion in the House of Commons about it, and I think it was pretty clear that the attacks today have not really worked.
And what will motivate you to get up at that hour of the morning for your constituents? No? And what will motivate you to get up at that hour of the morning for BlackRock investors? Is it worth going to bed in the first place, do you think?
Mr Osborne was in Parliament today to hear an urgent question from the opposition, the gist of which was whether his appointment as editor of the Standard, before the relevant committee gave its advice, could constitute a breach of the ministerial code or not.
George Osborne.
Well, Mr. Speaker, when I heard that this urgent question had been granted, I thought it was important to be here, although unfortunately we have missed the deadline for the Evening Standard. In my view, Mr. Speaker, in my view, this Parliament is enhanced when we have people of different experience take part in our robust debate, and when people who have held senior ministerial office continue to contribute to the decisions we have to make.
A special committee in Parliament looks at the second, or in this case sixth, job of ex-ministers to advise on potential conflicts of interest, if they take them up within 2 years of leaving office.
Free Standard.
That committee were informed a week ago about Mr Osborne's new role, and they will give him advice in due course.
Roger Mullin.
Well, on International Happiness Day, we can see some people who are pretty happy.
Back in Parliament, in response to George Osborne's tone, Londoners at least learned a new word.
And the honourable member for Tartan think it's a matter of mere amusement. Well, you cannot get off treating this House and the people as a load of gowks, as we would say in Scotland.
Is it not the case that we believe in a free press and therefore that proprietors should have the right to appoint who they believe is right to be editor without the executive or anyone else interfering in that decision? And is it not also the case that whoever represents a constituency should be up to its voters, not up to the opposition or anyone else to decree?
The question now, what will the independent committee in Parliament advise? And to what extent will that advice be
Final! Free Standard.